It was in the middle of a beautiful spate of weather. It had been warmer than usual, sunny, the kind of days you want to just get out and do something, either in the yard or at the beach. You want to plan a picnic. You just want to go and do.
13-year-old Jennifer Bastian and her mother Patty spend a quiet summer morning together.
Jennifer was up, I got up. I think she got cereal, I got coffee, and we just talked about the day. She was going to go on a YMCA bike riding trip. It was a trip that was a little bit timid for her. She was a petite gal riding a 15-speed bike and trying to master that before the trip. And so she was practicing every day.
And on that particular day, she asked for permission to ride her bike to the Point Defiance Park, which is something she had done before. Normally she would take a friend, but her friend was not available that day. So she went by herself, and she actually left a note for her dad, and she took off for the park.
She wrote a note saying she'd be home by 6:30, but she wasn't there for dinner. And then we called the police. The police asked for a piece of her clothing or something from her room. Ralph and I both went into the bedroom. We got a t-shirt or school bag, or I don't know what it was, gave it to them.
They brought in bloodhounds to track from Jennifer's house down to the park. The dogs picked up her scent and indicated that she had gone around the 5-mile drive based on her scent, but the dogs didn't locate her or her bike.
When there is still no sign of Jennifer the following morning, the search intensifies.
They had about 300 plus people out looking for Jennifer, and they found nothing. The thought process after that 3-day search was, she's not in the park.
Detectives run down every tip, but none of them lead to Jennifer.
There was a jogger who was part of a YMCA running club, and he was jogging through the trails at Point Defiance Park and noticed a really foul odor off of one of the trails.
On August 28th, 24 days after Jennifer vanished, her family's worst fears come true. A search and rescue team finds her remains near the 5-mile drive.
Her body itself was positioned on its back, arms above her head. Her bicycle was located maybe 60 feet away. Because of the level of decomposition, it was very difficult to tell for certain, but there was a ligature that was around her neck, and based on everything that we saw and everything that we knew, we believe that was most likely going to be the cause of death. That was subsequently confirmed at autopsy.
By the summer of 1987, new leads coming in vanish like tiny leaves in the forest wind, and the case goes cold.
Detective Wade and I were actually partners when we worked SAU cases. And so whenever I needed something, she was kind of my go-to person for help.
While speaking with a forensic expert, Detectives Miller and Wade are advised to submit Jennifer's swimsuit to the crime lab. The hope is to obtain a reference DNA sample for Jennifer, in case it's needed in the future.
So Gene submits Jennifer's swimsuit to the crime lab, and a few months later, he gets a call from the crime lab, and the forensic scientist says to Gene, hey, are you interested in the male DNA that we found on Jennifer's swimsuit? And this is a bombshell, because not only are we learning for the first time that we do have DNA evidence from an unknown perpetrator, but we also learn at that same time that this DNA profile was entered into the state and the national DNA database.
Detectives submit the DNA found on Jennifer's swimsuit to CODIS, but there's no match. With leads once again running thin, Detective Wade learns of a murder case in Arizona.
I had heard about a woman named Colleen Fitzpatrick who had helped the Phoenix Police Department solve these cold cases from, I think it was 1990 or 91. And I had talked to the detectives on that case, and when they told me what she had done using genealogy, I was intrigued, to say the least. So with the help of the FBI, we were able to pay for Colleen's assistance in working on the case. Our crime lab basically created a profile from the DNA from the swimsuit, and YSTR DNA is DNA that's passed down from father to son. And so theoretically, if you follow the paternal line, the last name should stay the same. We gave Colleen the YSTR profile. She did her research and looked through her genealogy databases and came up with 3 potential last names for the suspect based on that DNA. The 3 names were Smith, Holbrook, and Washburn. So I went back and I looked at Washburn, and I saw that a guy named Robert Washburn had called in a tip back in May of 1986. So this was before Jennifer was killed.
And he says that he had seen a jogger, and he often jogs in Point Defiance Park. And he had seen someone through there that maybe they should look at, someone that might be suspicious. His name is there, so they have to try to get some answers.
I contacted the local FBI resident agency and provided them with the necessary information and said, we're asking people to voluntarily provide their DNA samples so they can be eliminated as a suspect. Can you have somebody go out and attempt to contact this person?
And he says, sure, and he gives it to him.
I called the agent out there. I asked him, was there anything remarkable about your contact with him? And it was just very routine, very straightforward.
The first batch came back with no matches. Then I sent the second batch and waited for months. I sent my last batch of samples to the crime lab in January of 2018, and I get a phone call. And he said, "Are you sitting down?" And he tells me, "We have a match on Jennifer Bastian." I'm speechless at this point, and I'm also tearing up. So I'm like, "Well, who is it? What's the name?" And he says, "It's Robert Washburn."
Robert Washburn graduated from high school in the Tacoma area and worked for a while as an engineer at Boeing. He moved to Illinois and was living a very quiet life caring for his disabled daughter. Neighbors described him, it's almost a cliche, as the quiet guy who kind of kept to himself, but seemed dedicated to his daughter.
At the time of Jennifer's murder, Robert Washburn was living just 9 blocks from the Bastian family. Police arrest Washburn and begin his extradition to Washington.
Robert Washburn is behind bars. He's voluntarily given his DNA. It matches to Jennifer Bastian, to the evidence left at the crime scene, but he pleads not guilty. And we all know anything can happen in a jury room.
2 weeks after his arrest, 60-year-old Robert Washburn is arraigned in a Pierce County court and charged with the first-degree murder of Jennifer Bastian. Washburn pleads not guilty. A judge sets a 2019 trial date, but just 3 months later, the Bastian family receives a phone call that changes everything.
It was the prosecutor saying they felt Washburn was ready to change his plea. They were clear it wouldn't necessarily be the longest sentence they would hope for, but under the situation, it would be no trial, and given his age, it kind of made sense to not push the issue.
As the Bastian family watches, Washburn admits he murdered Jennifer back in 1986.
He's strangely stoic in the courtroom. A written statement is read saying, he's sorry. He admits that he grabbed Jennifer and strangled her, and there's very little revealed about his motives, why he did it, how he did it.
Robert Washburn is sentenced to 26.5 years in prison.